Dave's 5 Hot Takes. Yeah. Okay, so we're here with James Bay, the uber talented, and these. I'm thinking about calling this series Dave's Faves. Dave's Faves, 5 songs faves. So I want you to just kind of give me like the flyover. Give me the background on these 5 songs. This was, by the way, I'm not just saying this was really hard for me to narrow this down to 5 songs because there were so many that I was like, okay. So first, if you ever want to be in love, talk to me about that song.
If you ever be in love, me and 2 fantastic guys called Jimmy Hogarth, who's responsible for a lot of brilliant early Paolo music, and another great guy called Steve McEwen. This was like 2011. It was one of the first 3-day writing sessions with other writers that I'd ever done. And I was excited to have that amount of time because I was typically per session, we'd write 1 song. And I thought, we could get more than 1 song done. First day goes by, we don't get anything. Second day comes and ends and nothing happens. We don't get any song. That's 2 days down. And we're halfway through the 3rd day and we're still nowhere. And it was one of the earliest moments that I went to the piano. I put my guitar down and I went to the piano. And I can play a few things out of time at this point on the piano, like today in 2020. Back then in 2011, I could barely play anything in time. I could barely play in C, which is typically easier to play. But I was desperate to get a song. So I just started hammering away at what felt like a progression. And it's one of the most sort of animal ways that songs get written. And it feels, in a way, I suppose, to talk about it, it sounds forced. It wasn't forced because songs will come if they come, and if they don't, they don't. And I was just determined, and like with all love and respect to Steve and Jimmy, we were all kind of taking a break. So I was sort of in the corner a little bit on my own, but we were all within earshot of each other. And I started singing, and I caught this kind of the things I'm telling you about this song, and not so much about the sort of subject matter. I suppose I wrote it about. It wasn't long since I'd moved out, and all my friends had moved away from our hometown, and we were all coming back now and again for the odd week to sort of see each other. And it was about that typical scenario where 2 people who once had a thing when they were like 17 were seeing each other again and going, "Hey, I wouldn't mind trying that again." And it was, I'll come around if you ever want to be in love, like for real, if you want to be in love, because that was the good thing. Right. But so the song got written. And here's the last thing I'll tell you about it. Kind of long-winded, but I wrote the chorus. We wrote the chorus there because it was the first thing that I came up with. And then we got a verse that felt adequate. And then it was getting ready for dinner time and we had to leave. So we had a great chorus. I thought the verse was okay. And we didn't have any more than that. So on the way, I went home and like a couple of weeks passed and I wrote a new verse because I just wasn't into the original one. I sent that to Jimmy as a voice note. He thought it was better. So he said, come in and record it. I was on the tube, the subway in London, on my way into a studio to record this verse. And I thought, I can't let this chorus that I love have a better verse, but no 3rd section. I need this thing to be complete. So in my mind, in my brain, on the tube, I came up with the bridge, the middle 8. I came up with the lyric and the melody and decided the song is typically in C. I thought, well, let's start on the 5 chord in the bridge. I'd never done something like that before. So we started on the 5, fell down to the 4, and then to the 1. And I was probably 25 minutes away from Jimmy when I came up with it. And I just sung it round in my head. And I got there and I said, Jimmy, hang on, don't say anything. I've got this thing. Let me try and record it. And as I record it on your phone or whatever, tell me if it sucks or not. And I got it out right with all the lyrics, which I'd actually written in my phone on the way down. And he loved it, so it went in.
So you Christine McVied that
I Christine McVied it slightly.
So you know what I love about that song? And it actually you just lifted the hood to make sense of it, is the feel. Because it's one of the hardest feels. This sounds crazy for me to write on guitar, is in it.
Yeah, the real straight.
Knowing that you start on piano makes so much sense.
I was going dow 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 dow.
Yeah,
bow. It was very like hammered out, kind of really basic, like bad piano player stuff.
Because it's so fun to play to on guitar, but writing those songs for me, where you're just going it's so hard.
And I have to hand it to Jakir, who recorded this song. I play that song live with a 12-string, with a Gibson 12-string acoustic.
Oh yeah,
it's beautiful and jangly, and I love it.
Yeah.
I only came up with doing that live. In the studio, Jakir had me do 1 or 2 typical 6-string acoustics and then a couple of takes of a Nashville strum, Which
Oh yeah, the high. Yes,
a Nashville high strung. Sorry, yeah. If you put those strings together, you have a 12 string. But he wanted to spread it and make it really glossy. So,
oh, that's so cool.
It was very cool.
I love that song. All right, talk to me about "Move Together."
"Move Together" is a fun memory. This was the second song that I wrote that that ended up going on Chaos and the Calm. The first one I wrote was "When We Were on Fire" with John Green, but the second one, I was going into London. I wasn't living in London, but I was going into London. This is early days of co-writing for me, to meet a guy called Jamie Hartman, who I'd never written with before, who was about to move to LA, and he's a London guy. And I went to this really bizarre studio. It was like painted interior. The interior was like silver and orange. It looked like a spaceship inside, which is the last place you'd think someone would Move Together in. But you'd think someone would write it in like Neil Young's barn or something. Anyway, and that's where I wanted to write it, because what happened is like I was getting ready to leave, and typically with co-writes at this point, the move was to sort of turn up with a couple ideas in the bag that was sort of the start of something maybe, and I didn't have anything all week before, and then the day before, and then the night before, and then the morning of. I was still stressing about it, and this is one of these crazy moments. They very rarely happen, and a few wonderful things happened on this day. But I was tying up my shoes before I left the front door. I knelt down, and then as I knelt down to the floor, this came in. It came into my head. Excuse the out-of-tune guitar, but the riff.
You're kidding me.
It came into my head. It just came into my head. So I got my guitar out of the case, having done up my shoelaces, and I recorded that into my phone. And I turned up having never met Jamie before. He had a 12-string that was tuned completely different to mine. And I said, I've got this. And it's one of the only songs I've ever written. It's one of the only songs I've ever written in about 2 hours.
Holy cow.
Everything just fell into our laps. It was one of those. All I ended up going in with very last minute was, that's all I had. And I remember Jamie was so fluid with it. He just went, no. Because I told him about a scenario the night before where me and my girlfriend had a bit of a falling out, and we were living in her parents' house, and it was a difficult sort of dynamic, as anyone can imagine. We were trying to just be with each other through all of this stuff. So we just told that story. I told him the story, and then Jamie helped lyricize it in such a beautiful way. So
it is a gorgeous song.
Thanks, man. It just fell together.
It's beautiful. Okay, talk to me about Wild Love. God, love that song.
Wild Love is one of my favorites. It's one of the moments that me and John are sort of getting to be me and John, like the most me and John that we could be. John Green, who you know very well, and I know very well. We have written together for many years now, nearly 10 years we've written together. And we got together around the time that I was sort of starting to think about my second record. And we usually would work in a couple of places in London that we worked so much in that he said, let's go to a different place. We ended up writing this song. Here's a small fun fact at the very start of the story. It's not a long story, but we wrote this song in a room in sort of Ladbroke Grove area of London. It's the same little room. It's only about the size of the room that you're in now. It's a nice little sort of writing studio. And Adele wrote Rolling in the Deep in that room.
No way.
Which is pretty cool. And Paul Epworth, who produced and wrote Rolling in the Deep, who ended up working with me and John on my second record. Yeah, he used to own that room. So yeah.
That is crazy.
But we wrote that song on a piano and an acoustic guitar, and we'd written so many songs like that, and that typically is how I sort of present my music. So from there, John turned on the computer. I sat on a sort of half pieced together drum kit, and I'm not a drummer. And we just started to sort of play it and sing it like that. He had this fun plug-in thing called Omnisphere.
Oh, yes.
And was playing synth sounds from that. And we were just, I sung the vocal that is on the record in that room. The vocal from the demo is the one that is the only vocal I've ever sung. And I think I felt, and John really appreciated this because we at this point already knew each other really well. I'd written a lot of kind of heartache songs, and I just wanted something that was a little bit more of a celebration. So the lyric, I want to give you wild love, the kind that never slows down, just sort of came to us, and we ran with it.
Which that song is so interesting because it's like knowing how cool it sounds. It's like crazy to think y'all sat and did that on piano and acoustic first.
I love that. I love that it isn't on piano and acoustic, but I love that, and we've talked about this before, I love that it was written there and we sort of knew and we felt and we knew that it was a good song in that basic format.
It is so good.
Thanks,
that
man.
song makes me feel so many things. Okay, Let It Go.
Let It Go. So much that I can say about Let It Go. And there's so much I sort of haven't said about Let It Go. Everybody says to me that's such a sort of gorgeous breakup song. I didn't go through a breakup.
That's amazing.
I didn't write it about a breakup. It's collected from other scenarios, really. And I think I've always tried to adopt, because I've sort of learnt it and watched it from songwriting heroes of mine. I've tried to be a sort of observer of things that are going on in my life, and then how to write about them. But then also just think things that are going on in the lives of people close to me who I care about. So it's more to the tune of other folks' situations. And I just signed a record deal when I wrote that song, and I was suddenly being sort of flown around the world a bit. And that was very difficult for my own relationship. And so, of course, in that respect, it's about a testing of the relationship, and people, individuals in a relationship wanting all sorts of different, quite big things, and those things clashing. And then this call, from my perspective, of let's let those things go. Let's refine. Let's go simpler. Let's take it back to the sort of the most important basics. So it's about that for me, and that's where it kind of came from. But other than that, Paul, I've talked to you about Paul before. Paul Barry, who I wrote the song with, had something like this. He kind of had these moves, and I'd been doing a lot of moves like that myself as well. The last thing from the whole session was this. I came up with this because I wanted it to be a bit Coldplay.
I love that line.
I sort of was thinking about, I was listening to Parachutes by Coldplay a lot, and I feel like they did a lot of those dreamy, twinkly guitar lines. But
so then you just changed what Paul was doing to do the more of the.
I went more sort of straight. I was only ever going to, at this point in my mind, play it solo, so I wanted it to be more sort of rigid and rhythmic. So it got very sort of straight. That's the chorus. Let it go, let it be. I love that minor too. So it's all of that stuff. But there was a huge sort of Joni Mitchell inspiration going on.
Oh wow, that's fascinating.
I was listening to blues so much, and she's always very she's got that sweet little high voice, especially when she sings soft. Walking home and talking lows. I love all that. This guitar's tuned higher. To see in shows and evening clothes with you. I love those little observations of life going on, and then finding sadnesses within it. Now we're sleeping at the edge, holding something we don't need. All this delusion in our heads is gonna bring us to our knees. So come on, let it go. Just let it be. One of my favorite lyrics in it is everything that's broke, leave it to the breeze. That idea,
I love that. Love that.
Leave it, like throw it like leaves in a passing breeze or something. I like that.
So I have a few questions about this song. When you wrote that, did you feel like, oh.
You know, I didn't know what that feeling was or what it meant or anything, but yes, to be honest.
Wow. That's amazing.
I wrote 2 songs that week, and the other one was Best Fake Smile, which is very up-tempo.
Wow.
Big chanting chorus. And I looked forward to my label and my managers calling me to sort of tell me what they thought of those songs, and they all lost their minds for Best Fake Smile.
No way.
And I'm glad they did, and we used that song as a single in the UK. But I would say, we're all on great terms about this, but I say, what about the other one? I feel like that one's cool. They said it's a sweet little song, and like nobody was like throwing it in the trash. Everyone thought it was a keeper. Everyone thought it was a total keeper. The confession from everyone is that nobody saw it, and I didn't, because I didn't know what these were. No one saw it as a single, but fans just reacted. People just heard it. I was going around America opening for people, doing a few shows, like first on the bill, and I would play it, and it would sort of make the room listen.
You would see, you saw that from the stage,
and the folks who were with me, managers and label folks that were at the shows, when they were at the shows, they saw it too, and it made people recognize, and that's the only thing it will,
So had you recorded it at that point?
No, I hadn't recorded it. I recorded that with Jakir, but I hadn't.
So how did y'all approach? Because I think one of the things, that song to me is bulletproof. Like, I think, in my opinion, if I am you and I write that song at the beginning of my career, I'm thinking I'm good at least for a couple of years on it. And I think too, because it's for me, it's everything I'm trying to write in the song. It's cool when you play it. Every guitar part on that song is so freaking cool.
Thanks, man.
Every melody's cool. The lyric too, to me, is you do one of my favorite things that songs can do, which is you're talking about how you feel without talking about how you feel on the verses.
You're doing it without saying this is how
images.
I feel.
Yeah, and everybody knows, talking low, like you're like, oh, I know how that feels. Like even all those things. I know how you feel without you having to go like, I'm so in love.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the moments, for example, writing the lyric, I used to recognize myself. It's funny how reflections change.
Dude, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, if I'm you, I get that song and I'm like, this is such a good way for me to announce myself to the world, because that song is freaking bulletproof. And even more, and this is one of the biggest deals, is when I sit and play this song, it's just as cool. Like, you're not having to go. I always laugh, like, you're not having to go with the song like, all right, everybody, imagine this is happening back on and then the drums are and then I'm doing that. You can just play it on guitar.
We had a moment on the Ed Sheeran tour where, and in Germany, so it's with my laptop, in Germany, we did 2 nights. It was so incredible. It was the biggest shows Ed had ever done. He was playing a place called, I think, Hockenheim Ring, I think it was called. It's a massive racetrack.
Oh, wow.
Metallica, Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, they're the only people who've really played there because it holds so many people. He did 2 nights there. The first night there was 100,000 people, and the second second night there was 102,000 people. And I hadn't unmuted my guitar, but me and Andy, who plays guitar in my band, so I do this bit, and Andy at the intro of the song goes, and those play together. I hadn't turned off my guitar tuner, so we counted it in, and Andy went, and he stopped himself there because he realized that. So he was fast. He stopped himself there. All he played after we counted in was, that's all the audience got, and the crowd went crazy.
Oh, that's the best.
And it wasn't even my crowd, and it was wild, man. It was the wild.
Is that not the craziest feeling?
He played 2 notes, and they all knew what was coming, and it just made my heart leap.
I mean, I somebody told me one time, and I still think this is such a cool way to think about songs, is that the guy told me, he's like, you want to write a song that 3 seconds in, people know what it is.
It's really cool to even in my own little atmosphere have that sort of thing and be able to experience that sort of thing. And I do appreciate, I'm so eternally grateful and recognize as I play around the world, at festivals or just at my own shows, what it is to have that sort of thing.
God, it's incredible.
It's such a cool thing.
Well, and 2, and I'll say 2 more things. I think 1, it's just such a great first big single, in my opinion, because again, it's a cool guitar part. It shows everything. If I'm your A&R guy / manager, I am freaking out because I'm like, this is all I want people to see in James.
But man,
he can sing, he can play, the song is good, the parts are cool. It's like, it's all there. Yeah,
and it took all of us a minute to realize that that's what we wanted, because I like to rock out and solo and I was trying to push that agenda. But what really moves people the first time and the most was me doing that. And they've appreciated me doing the other stuff afterwards, and I appreciate that. But it took us a minute to recognize that. And the label asked us to go around in 2015, all the festivals that we played, particularly in America. This was an American thing to do with American radio. They said, could you just film the breakdown chorus in the middle of that song? Because all these crowds keep singing it. And I remember doing it outside Lands on a smaller stage, not the smallest one, but one of the slightly smaller stages at Outside Lands in San Francisco. And there was a lot of people singing it. And we collected sort of 7 or 8 festivals of crowds singing the chorus in the middle of it. And it hadn't been on the radio. Jeez. It was just on YouTube and stuff like that. And I went to an iHeartRadio conference with my label, and the guy from the label who was promoting the weekend, who was enormous, and he said, and this is James, and he got me to play the song live in front of these guys. They're all executives. And then he played the little show reel of sort of few minutes of 7 or 8 festivals where the camera pans, the phone camera that we used pans from me to the audience when it goes to the crowd at the middle of the song. And he showed them all singing the chorus. And then when the little video of all these different festivals finished, my guy from the label turned to the room of iHeart executives and said, they're all listening to the song already. They don't need your radio to play it. So everybody stand up, and everybody in the room stood up. They said, okay, sit down if you don't think you're going to play it. And the whole room stayed standing and applauded.
No.
And
that is genius.
And really, that was the moment that it started to go on the radio in America and be a bit.
Okay, so two more quick things. One, I just think the chorus is. I remember hearing that song the first time, and I was like, I want to sing this chorus a million times. It's you know what I mean. It just feels so good to sing.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
It's just it's like I said, it's bulletproof. Last question about that one really quickly. How did you? Every time it comes on that I hear it, I'm always fascinated at how stark the production is.
Honestly,
like how did y'all get there? What was there? Did y'all do a million versions where the drums are, you know?
I didn't know what I was doing. I was just me in my sort of originally kind of rawest form. I'd never been in a studio in a professional capacity or anything. All I know to this day is that the label and managers said to Jakir, and they just sent him some demos, and he just sort of put his hand up because nobody knew who I was, and he said, "Sure, I'll do this."
Wow,
which was a dream for me because he was already a bit of a hero of mine for the music he'd made. They just said, if you can, could you try and just stay out of the way of the song?
Wow. Of that one particularly?
All of it. But
all of it. Gotcha.
All of it. And they didn't sort of see that one necessarily as a single yet. So it was the mission statement for Jakir, who's a great producer and a fantastic engineer. And they just said, could you just try and stay out of the way of the song? Because we think they're special, and hopefully you hear that too. And I just think he did that really well. He let me and my bit of guitar playing sit at the front of the event, and he kept everything else sort of sparse. And even in hindsight, I sometimes, I wish there was more going on, but I know Jakir nailed it.
And did you, at the time, did y'all, I mean, around that song particularly, did y'all have, was that like you kept pushing for things, pulling for things, or did y'all kind of have what it was and went, yeah, it's great?
Slightly, it's a bit of a blur, but
yeah.
It was more the latter. It was more that everyone was interested in staying out the way of the song.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, there was a band called Half Moon Run, who are a great Canadian band, and then Jeff Buckley's kind of graced that whole record. Stuff in that music was my inspiration at the most, and the rest of it, and a bit of Coldplay, but that was it.
Well, and here's the last song, and I think one of the other things that's so great when you listen to that record, and where Let It Go sort of lives amongst it, really is. It's what, as an artist, at least in my opinion, it's what you want. Where it's like, and I'm about to ask you about When We Were on Fire, but you think about that, you think about. If you ever want to be in love, again, these really, we talked about this earlier, but really musical moments, like musical, the melodies are following what you're singing, the guitars, everything is just really well built and structured, these songs. Like, and then you have this moment that's so gentle. Mm-hmm. It's a huge song, and so it's fun because as an artist, that's when I put together records, I get so much joy from going like, okay, how's the trip? Are we going up and then we come down and we go around a little river and then we go over there? Yeah. And I think when you put that song in the list of that record, it really occupies, it's the only one that really kind of occupies that place, which helps it shine that much more.
Absolutely. I'm glad. I resonate with that whole thing of thinking about the sort of the overall dynamic arc of a record.
Yeah. Tell me about When We Were on Fire.
When We Were on Fire, it was interesting to my memory. So it goes, and I know, illusion that our love is dying. So I had, maybe not those exact lyrics, but I came to the session with it going like this. Yeah, I know, illusion light. I had with Losing Light, Our Love Is Dying. And I had it like that, kind of, it's I know it's in G minor, but think about it like it's in A minor. Because that's
yeah.
I had it starting on that rootsy sort of minor chord, and then the big dominant 7. And John just helped rearrange it, really. And because there was always going to be so many chords in the chorus, he got us into that vampy place on the verse.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
It was 2011. The world had heard Rolling in the Deep and stuff like that, and we were all like trying to do something like that. And I have. In a little Olympus dictaphone that I still have. I've had it since about 2008. I was taking that thing around with me because this is before, we wrote this song before I had an iPhone. I have recordings of John at a piano kind of going, drifting apart, getting harder to hold you, saying versions of these lyrics. Days getting dark and the nights are growing cold. Are we burning out? And the way that he was playing it, you've got me in the background going, yeah, I like it, but I don't want it to get too pop. And John interrupting me and himself saying, don't worry, it won't get too pop. It'll be great.
That is genius.
And he was very good at, he was the kind of guy who introduced me in a writing environment to sort of not only coming up with lyrics and chorus stuff or whatever, melodies obviously, but oh, what am I doing? Hang on. We'll cut that bit. We go in it. Yeah, sorry. And then like playing that, I remember I was noodling that on the guitar, and he was like, "Yeah, we'll put some ooze on top of that."
Which that
all these things, these ways of doing in a song.
That song is that's another one of those in that song, that album, that it does a couple things that are always really fascinating. I was listening to them again yesterday. Hello, and the thing that is so funny about that, I usually am not. It's something about going back to the one. Usually is like a no for me. Fire. And that song, though, it is like my favorite part of that song.
I remember him doing it sort of for the first time, and I didn't necessarily know how to question that, but I recognized that typically I wouldn't have liked it, and when he did it, I liked it.
I love it. I mean, I love it.
There's things, I know John so well now, that one of my favorite things about that song is it's sort of typical John Green.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it for that, and I love him more for that. But
it's very anthemic.
I'm glad I was let in. Yeah, of course. And I'm glad I was let in because he kind of made room for my kind of intricate, intimate smallness. That's all I sort of had at the time. And it was starting to grow into sort of more, I guess. But, and he allowed that to be in the room while he was kind of shooting for anthem status. And as he always is. And yeah, man, what an honor.
I mean,
it's the first song we ever wrote. It's the first song we ever wrote together.
That's crazy. I mean, just to encourage, it was so hard. I mean, there were so many other songs. I was like, oh, but dude, these are great. Thank you again for taking time to do this.
Honor.
You're the man. James Bay, the man, the legend.
These 5 hot takes, yeah.